Toxic coworker doesn't walk in snarling. They walk in smiling. They offer help you never asked for. They ask questions that sound supportive but leave you explaining yourself. They don't break rules, they bend them, just enough that you look like the problem when you push back. By the time you realize what's happening, your reputation has already been rewritten by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Here is how they operate. They bait you with a small jab, a dismissive tone, a deadline moved without telling you, then wait for you to flinch. When you do, you're the emotional one. They gossip under concern. I'm worried about Sarah, she seems overwhelmed, framing a colleague as struggling without evidence. They triangulate, pulling a third person into a two-person conflict so whispers never trace back. They steal credit by being in the room when your idea lands, rephrasing it as theirs before you can speak. They weaponize friendliness to your face, then stay ambiguous in writing so nothing is traceable. They undermine you publicly with a well-timed sigh or an interesting approach that everyone hears as "that won't work." They offer fake concern, "I'm telling you as a friend," as cover for criticism no one asked them to deliver. And they test boundaries with small asks outside your role. Each yes lowers the barrier for the next. Each yes tells them you won't push back. If you fight them head on, you lose, because they are playing a game you didn't know had started, and the rules favor people who aren't afraid to be petty. So don't fight. Win a different way. First, document calmly. Not to file a complaint yet, but to have receipts when you need them. Save the passive-aggressive email. Screenshot the moment your name was scrubbed from the deck. Note the meeting where your idea was restated as someone else's. This isn't paranoia, it's evidence. And evidence changes the math for anyone who might escalate. Second, do not react emotionally. This is the hardest rule and the most powerful one. The toxic coworker's entire strategy depends on getting a reaction, frustration, tears, defensiveness, because a reaction proves to anyone watching that you are the difficult one. So give them nothing: a flat tone, a slow blink, a polite "I see," and a return to work. When you refuse to supply the reaction they need, their story collapses. They can't call you unprofessional if you stay boringly, painfully professional. Third, make your work visible before it can be stolen. Toxic coworkers love invisible labor because invisible labor is easy to rebrand. Send the recap email. Put your name next to the decision. Document the origin of the idea without sounding possessive. As discussed, I'm moving forward with the framework I shared in Tuesday's meeting. One sentence does two things. It moves the work forward and it leaves a time-stamped trail. Fourth, ask clarifying questions in public, not aggressively, without drama, calmly. If they make a vague accusation, can you be specific about which part of the process you're concerned about? If they imply you missed something, which deadline are you referring to? My notes show we agreed on Friday. If they try to volunteer you for extra work, which priority should move so I can take this on? Public clarity is toxic to manipulation. It forces foggy claims into daylight. Fifth, keep important communication written. Toxic coworkers thrive in hallway conversations where words disappear. So after verbal discussions, send a recap, just confirming what we agreed. If someone keeps changing instructions, to avoid confusion, can you confirm which version you want me to use? Written communication doesn't make you difficult. It makes reality harder to edit. Sixth, build allies without gossiping. This is where many people lose the moral high ground. They get hurt, start warning everyone, and suddenly look like the drama. Don't do that. Build trust through consistency. Share useful information. Be reliable. Let people experience your professionalism repeatedly. When the toxic coworker starts framing you negatively, the room will compare that story against what they already know about you. Seventh, expose patterns, not personalities. Never walk into a manager's office and say, "She's toxic." That sounds emotional, even if it's true. Say, "I'm noticing a repeated pattern where project decisions are changed after meetings without written confirmation. It's creating rework. Can we standardize how decisions are documented?" One is a personal attack, the other is a business problem. Toxic people want the conflict to become personality versus personality. You make it process versus outcome. Eighth, protect your boundaries with choices, not apologies. Instead of sorry, I can't, say I can take this on after the current deadline, or I can pause the report, which is more important. Boundaries sound stronger when framed as trade offs. You're not refusing work, you're forcing the real cost of the request into the open. Finally, protect your reputation before your feelings. Your private frustration does not matter as much as the public pattern people can observe. Be calm, be consistent, be documented, be useful, be hard to provoke, be easy to verify. The goal is not to out toxic the toxic coworker. The goal is to make their tactics stop working on you. When they bait you, there is no reaction. When they gossip, your reputation is already stronger than the rumor. When they steal credit, your trail is already visible. When they twist the story, the receipts are already waiting. That's how you outsmart a toxic coworker. Not by becoming louder, not by becoming meaner, but by becoming impossible to misframe.